The global AI stack is fracturing, and the battle lines are hardening across silicon, talent, and sovereign borders. We are moving past the era of software abstraction, returning to a world where physics, supply chains, and geopolitical leverage dictate who gets to build the future. The infrastructure wars are officially here. Today, we are tracking 8 major stories that define this week in artificial intelligence. This is a rapid, deep dive look at compute, intellectual property, and the shifting global balance of power straight from the European frontier. Let's get into the signals. First, the silicon frontier. OpenAI has officially entered the custom chip race. According to OpenAI, Broadcom, and reporting from TechCrunch and CNBC, OpenAI has taped out its first custom large language model inference ASIC, designed under the internal codename Jalapeño. At reticle-size scale, this is a serious piece of silicon, and OpenAI says it leaned on Broadcom's mature IP blocks and heavy pre-silicon verification to move this fast. The bet is clear: own more of the inference stack instead of renting all of it. The stated goal is to achieve performance per watt metrics that sit well above the current state-of-the-art, with initial deployments scheduled for late 2026. This signals that the foundation model labs now view hardware engineering as a core moat. They can no longer afford to let Nvidia capture the majority of their cloud margins. The era of relying solely on general-purpose GPUs for massive scale is ending. Takeaway for builders: if you are deploying heavy models, your future profit margins will be dictated by whoever controls the underlying compute. Start optimizing your model architectures now for a fragmented, heterogeneous hardware future. Next, we move to a major escalation in the global intellectual property Cold War. According to Bloomberg and Tom's Hardware, Anthropic has sent a letter to United States senators accusing Alibaba of mass model distillation. Anthropic describes a large-scale, automated data harvesting operation designed to pull high-quality reasoning traces out of the model at scale. If accurate, it would be a deliberate effort to learn from Claude's outputs rather than license them. However, we must be clear here. Alibaba categorically denies these allegations, and the exact figures cited in the letter are not independently verified. The scale, if true, would eclipse an earlier DeepSeek case. This signals a massive shift. Proprietary synthetic reasoning trajectories are now treated as strategic exports. Model weights and specialized RLHF data are no longer the sole crown jewels. The actual logic generated by the model is heavily monitored. Takeaway for founders: expect aggressive rate limits, mandatory enterprise KYC, and strict chain of custody audits. The days of easily scraping frontier intelligence via APIs are ending. Shifting to the talent market, the flow of top researchers continues to signal where the true frontier is heading. Industry newsletters are reporting a notable talent flight from Google to Anthropic. Reports indicate that 4 senior Google Gemini researchers left the company for Anthropic within a span of just 6 days. We are framing this as reported rather than officially confirmed, but these specialists focus on the exact alignment and reinforcement learning bottlenecks required to stabilize massive multimodal training runs. These are not junior engineers. They are specialists in the exact scaling bottlenecks that Google has struggled to stabilize. When this caliber of researcher leaves a hyperscaler for a smaller focused lab, it tells the market who is currently solving the hardest problems in constitutional AI and behavioral safety. This signals that research momentum compounds, and the center of gravity for cutting-edge alignment is shifting. Takeaway for engineers: align your product roadmaps with the lab currently holding the architectural edge, as their upcoming releases will dictate the next generation of applied AI. Back to raw compute, the global infrastructure crunch is forcing unusual partnerships. According to Reuters, Australian firm Firmus Technologies has officially partnered with Nvidia to launch a new initiative. Firmus is known for building unusually efficient, sustainably powered AI data centers, and the tie-up is aimed at giving smaller AI companies cheaper, faster access to high-end Nvidia compute that the hyperscalers usually lock up. This signals that Nvidia is deliberately diversifying its compute grid. By enabling independent operators to create localized compute zones, they are preventing any single sovereign block or hyperscaler from monopolizing global AI capacity. Hardware allocation is becoming a geopolitical tool. The era of cloud providers holding absolute monopoly power over inference cost is fracturing. Takeaway for founders: you can now architect for multi-region, distributed fine-tuning without being permanently locked out by the cloud giants, unlocking massive cost savings. While emerging players get access, the mega-cap labs are actively building walls. According to the Financial Times and Reuters, Google has moved to heavily restrict Meta's internal use of Gemini models. The reported move reflects rising licensing friction and competitive tension between the two giants over how rival models are allowed to access and benchmark against each other. Google has not published a detailed rationale. This signals the death of the interoperable AI API layer. Foundation model providers are realizing that they are giving away their core competitive advantage to their direct rivals under the guise of developer ecosystems. Friendly fire is no longer tolerated. The walled garden era of model deployment means trust between major labs is officially dead. Takeaway for engineers: assume permanent API access between competing foundation models is over. You must now build rigid, redundant fallback systems into your architecture to handle sudden provider bans. But this lockdown is triggering a massive counter-movement in the open-source community. According to posts on X from Sentient AGI, the Sentient Foundation has just launched a massive $42 million open-source AGI grant pool. The focus is on advancing efficient, on-device inference for low-power and edge environments, the kind of optimization that could let strong open models run locally instead of only inside centralized clouds. This signals that the market is actively pricing in the risk of a closed-loop AI oligopoly. Smart money is aggressively backing decentralized, localized intelligence as a necessary counterweight to maintain market competition and data privacy. Foundation models are rapidly becoming a commoditized layer, and the value is shifting to localized, private deployment. Takeaway for builders: if you are building privacy-first or offline applications, the hardware and model optimization funding is finally here to support your stack. In tooling news, OpenAI has officially transitioned agentic coding from a beta experiment to a core product. According to OpenAI release notes, Codex Remote hit general availability across all ChatGPT plans on June 25th. Unlike local IDE assistants, Codex Remote spins up secure, isolated cloud environments to compile, run, and test software autonomously. It handles deep dependency resolution and container orchestration, effectively giving a single developer the leverage of a fully managed cloud-built server. Simultaneously, personal finance features were expanded to Plus and Android users. This rapid expansion comes just a day before OpenAI officially retired GPT 4.5 from its active deployment line on June 26th, streamlining their architecture for pure agentic workloads. This signals that user tolerance for manual multi-step software execution is effectively zero. The market is demanding that all complex workflows be abstracted into a single, autonomous prompt completion. Takeaway for developers: your APIs, documentation, and software interfaces must be machine-readable and optimized for autonomous agents, not just humans. Finally, the European policy landscape is making a massive sovereignty play. According to Bloomberg and Reuters, Austria is actively lobbying the EU to host Anthropic operations. Austria is pitching regulatory and infrastructure incentives to welcome the Frontier Lab onto European soil, leaning on the EU's data protection framework as a selling point rather than purely a constraint. This signals that Europe realizes strict regulation without local frontier capabilities is a losing strategy. The EU is finally willing to negotiate practical compliance timelines in exchange for sovereign AI gravity and domestic technological independence. The geopolitical landscape is shifting from a purely restrictive stance to a strategic courting of frontier capabilities. Takeaway for founders: if you are an EU-based company, your regulatory disadvantage is about to flip into a data localization advantage. Prepare your infrastructure for strict European data residency requirements now. The pattern across this week is undeniable. The AI industry is aggressively restructuring around physical infrastructure, proprietary IP walls, and sovereign borders. We are entering a multipolar AI landscape where vertical integration is the ultimate mode. Control over the silicon, the data, and the regulatory zones will dictate the next decade of innovation. AetherLink builds sovereign AI infrastructure for Europe, ensuring the frontier remains accessible, compliant, and secure. Subscribe for the weekly signal.